The 2020s is definitely the decade to be a Mario Kart fan. For starters, you had Mario Kart Tour that was getting new content every 2 weeks, that eventually had it become the most content-heavy title in the series. But in case you thought that mobile games are the Antichrist, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe would soon get DLC that doubled the size of an already huge game. In 2022 and 23, you had 2 Mario Kart games going through hype cycles, and there was something for both mobile and console gamers. And then you jump to the present and there's already a new Mario Kart confirmed for the Switch too. We are so spoiled, it's ridiculous. But then there's that gap year between this announcement and when Tour and 8 Deluxe stopped getting new content. The big 2024. What were Mario Kart fans up to? Oh, you know, waiting for the next Mario Kart. What are we supposed to do now, Nintendo? Are you just gonna leave us to starve? If you were to ask me, I actually really appreciated the downtime. Both Tour and the Booster Course Pass were pretty controversial, so it's nice to no longer be in the heat of those debates. And rather than thinking about the future of Mario Kart, I actually took this time to look at its past, going back to replay the older games to see if they still hold up. Double Dash was as amazing as ever. I like Super Circuit a bit more now, but I'm still not really that into it. 64. Good lord. But the one I ended up having the most to say about was in fact the very first title. The one that started it all, Super Mario Kart. I find this game to have a unique appeal from the fact that it's the framework of the series. Later on, each game would innovate on the formula more and more, like new vehicle types, gliding, diving, driving on ceilings. And don't get me wrong, those were all cool gimmicks. But here it's kinda nice to just have Mario go-kart racing in its purest form. Same reasons as to why I love Wonder for its ambitions, but also Mario 3 for its simplicity. Obviously it did well both sales-wise and for mass appeal, hence why Mario Kart is as big as it is today. Such a classic Super Nintendo game that was impactful enough to spawn one of Nintendo's greatest series surely still holds up and receives everyone's praises nowadays. Right?
Overall, I would give Super Mario Kart 4 out of 10.
It's by far the worst game in the franchise, and I don't think you can possibly make an argument that it's not.
The worst real Mario Kart is Super Mario Kart. Wow, what a surprise.
Okay, besides Tour, I think the weakest in the Mario Kart series is Super Mario Kart.
The game just didn't age very well. The controls are super difficult to adapt to, and the AI in some parts is just straight up unfair.
So yeah, I guess everyone hates this now. Maybe not hate, but at the very least, if you asked a Mario Kart fan what their least favorite title is, it would likely be either Tour or this game. It could be for various reasons: the controls, the limitations, its presentation could be off-putting, or the game as a whole not offering that much content. Generally, what was seen as impressive at the time it came out is now seen as underwhelming in the modern day. And not gonna lie, I was in this boat for the longest time. I did not care for Super Mario Kart, and could confidently say it was the worst one. But now I'm not so sure. I started to question if the hate was justified, and maybe I should be looking at this game from a different angle, instead of having the standards of a game that actually had 3D. I want to search if there's any qualities I can latch onto, and if I still end up not liking it, I would at least like to pinpoint why. So that's what I want to do today. Let's take a deep dive into the origin of my favorite game series to see if the road started smooth or quite bumpy. But before we get into the game itself, I find Super Mario Kart to have some pretty interesting development, so let's go back in time for a minute. Okay, not that far back, this is the French Revolution. Nintendo liked where they were going with F-Zero and wanted to expand upon it by making a sequel of multiplayer, but they ran into many roadblocks during development. For one, there being 2 players now was pretty taxing on the console, so they had to drastically shrink down the size of the maps, so you know the SNES wouldn't explode. But the maps being a lot smaller did not mesh well with F-Zero's speed and large scale. Plus, you can't really see the player in F-Zero, just their ship, so it was hard to distinguish the 2 players. All these problems kept piling up and up until eventually they were like, fuck it, this ain't working out, Mr. Falcon, you gotta go. And they were thinking of a rebrand for the whole project, something more recognizable and would match the smaller scale. And who's more iconic than Mr. Bing Bing Wahoo? And so they replaced the cast with Mario characters and changed the futuristic theming with Go-Kart Mario whimsy. And so, Super Mario Kart was born. You know, it's crazy to think that such a core Nintendo game was a result of trial and error. To think how different I could have ended up if it weren't for this happy accident. I could have been a Pokemon channel instead. That shit's scary to think about. If you're curious where I got all this info, the unofficial Book of Mario has an exclusive interview about Super Mario Kart, and it was a fun read. I actually learned something. Crazy, I know. And with this context, I'll now be getting into Super Mario Kart with more admiration this time around. So already from looking at the title screen, I gotta say, Super Mario Kart I couldn't help but see you across the bar. Yeah, I actually really like how this game looks. I'm such a sucker for pixel art and especially
16-bit.
Like I said when I covered Super Mario World, all the sprites can be more detailed here by having more shading and colors. And already they're using them to inject so much personality into this game, with how everyone is after each other's blood in the title screen. I also think it's funny how the instructions are part of the scrolling background in case you're already stumped. And speaking of Super Mario World, I also find it neat how this game is generally themed after that game, basing lots of race courses off its locations like Donut Plains and Choco Island. Super Mario World is my favorite 2D Mario game, so I gotta say, this is a great first impression. It's a rare occurrence for Mario spin-offs to be this connected to a mainline game, and I wish they did this more often as it makes the franchise feel more cohesive. I also have to give mad props to the sprite artist for dealing with the most annoying game to make sprites for. Since this game is pseudo 3D, they made sprites of every racer for several different angles, and then smaller versions if they were further away from the camera. I've been practicing pixel art for a couple years now, and I'd say I'm pretty decent at it, so let me just say that this looks like hell. Although it seems like they had some fun making them with how each character pulls off some kind of gesture from rotating, like Peach winking or Bowser throwing his arms in the air. So then you might be wondering how they're able to create a 3D space for racing in an age before 3D games. Is this some kind of wizard shit? Well, it kind of is in like quirky programming terms. The Super Nintendo has different graphic modes for displaying background layers, and Mode 7 allows the layer to be scaled and rotated around, so you can pull off the illusion of perspective by stretching the layer on the ground and squishing it further back. And then the direction of scrolling makes it look like it's moving forward and backwards. Stuff like this plays a big part in why I find older games so appealing. There's something cool about experiencing older methods of integrating something developers can easily do today. Part of why I also dig the N64 low poly style. I can feel that's gonna be the next so retro pretty soon, and I'm gonna sound like a soy. Mode 7 was a technical marvel when it was used in F-Zero, and it still was with Super Mario Kart. I also want to briefly give some spotlight to the concept art. It's not that different to what we see from Mario today, but it still has its classic edge from the chibi proportions and expressions. Again, I really dig the vanilla go-kart racing aesthetic of Super Mario Kart, but looking at the artwork of all the characters adds to that. But enough simping for its looks or hardware feats. Let's get to some actual gameplay. So before we get to the racetrack, we gotta pick our character. A very solid 8-character roster here. The Mario universe was still pretty small at the time, so they had to reach for some of these characters, like some Koopa Troopa and Donkey Kong Jr. Not Donkey Kong, his son. A very strange decision, but I'm here for it. And of course, not all of them play the same, and honestly, I'd say your choice matters the most in this game. For one, each pair of drivers have unique stats. Mario and Luigi are the safest bet with having equal weight, speed, and handling. I used to just go with Mario because of that. Why not Luigi, you ask? I don't know, I just like Mario more. Sorry, Luigi. Peach and Yoshi are lighter weights with the faster acceleration but have pretty bad handling. I'd only play as them if you're more experienced and want a risk and reward type of deal. Bowser and DK Jr. are the slowest and heaviest. Definitely the defensive choices if you find getting knocked off course by an opponent annoying, and it sure as hell is. But I found recently that my favorites are Toad and Koopa. They're the lightest characters and have the lowest top speed, but they get to that speed pretty quickly and have the best handling, and I'll gladly take that in a game with age controls. So Toad and Koopa are my mains now, gotta be my favorite genders. But another reason as to why your character choice is integral is with this game's rival mechanic. Depending on who you play as, there'll be a different computer character who will have beef with you, who will be trying extra hard to see your downfall, and they have different methods of top tier hating. Another reason why I always chose Mario was that DK Jr. is one of the least annoying since he just throws bananas. I've sung my praises for Koopa, but Luigi as a rival is agonizing because he just pulls stars out of his ass. Toad is a bit better, but Peach throwing mushrooms that shrink you down is still the worst if you happen to hit them. As annoying as the gameplay can get, I actually think the rival system is pretty neat, mostly because it injects a bit of personality into this game. Like, it fits that Bowser is after Peach and Mario is after Bowser. Some are a bit silly though, like Peach tormenting one of her subjects, and I don't know what Luigi did to get on Yoshi's bad side. He probably reversed into his cart by accident. That sounds like a thing he would do. So overall, my go-to will either be Mario or Toad, depending if I want a less annoying rival or more comfortable stats. So we've got 20 race courses among 4 different cups. Once we finally get into the racetrack, we get a nice view of the road, and a real damn good view of the map, that's for sure. So this game was made specifically for split screen 2-player, but since the split screen is so ingrained, they couldn't readjust the screen size when there's only one player, so they just turn the bottom screen into a mini-map when you're in single player. It can make the game frustrating from the fact that you have to focus your vision on the top half of a screen that's already on the smaller side. It does kinda suck at first, but it honestly doesn't take that long to adjust to it. Now, how does the game feel? Well, it sure does feel. It's natural for an old game's controls to age, but wow, the controls in Super Mario Kart were what really kept me out from fully enjoying this game in the past. For one, there's different button mapping, with the gas pedal being the B button and items being the A button. After playing years of Mario Kart where items are one of the shoulder buttons, this isn't a bad thing, but it's something you have to adjust to. And I can say even more so of steering and drifting. When the turns are more sharp and curvy, a simple steer to the side won't do, so you have to pull off a drift. Now, I was complete ass at this game's drifting. It always led me into the grass one way or another. I always underestimate just how sharp it makes you turn. I feel like how adjusted you are to the drifting is going to determine whether you like this game or not, because if you haven't gotten it down, you are getting wiped. It's the biggest hurdle Super Mario Kart has to offer, other than an even bigger, more devastating one we've yet to cover. But for the sake of this video, I've decided to keep playing Super Mario Kart until I nail down the drifting. It actually took a few hours of playtime. I even kept playing Rainbow Road on time trials until I didn't fall off the track to definitively prove my skills. And I've gotta say, now that I've adapted to it, Super Mario Kart's controls actually feel pretty satisfying. Once you've grown on the drifting and hopping, you'll start to use it in situations you don't really need to, but it's just fun and rewarding to do so. And the flat course design actually works in favor of the controls. Because of their simplicity, they kind of serve as a canvas for you to go wild. Same reasons as to why I don't find DS's basic retro course selection to be as bad as most people do. Because there it's a lot easier to go apeshit on the mini turbos. So the controls, like most of Super Mario Kart, are solid, they're just pretty foreign from what you might be used to. Onto a mechanic that's a bit controversial: the coins. I don't know if this era is in the past now, but I remember coins being absolutely torched by Mario Kart fans, mostly because in Mario Kart 8 you often get them in item boxes in first place, because you know, God forbid the guy in first place is actually vulnerable instead of front running the whole time. Well, you can blame the first title for that, but I actually think coins work the best here. They kind of serve as your HP, where if you have no coins, you'll spin out if you make contact with another driver, and getting bonked by someone makes you lose coins. So you have to make sure you're collecting them often, and I like the stakes that it adds to the match. And for the next Mario Kart, I hope coins play a bigger role than just increasing your speed slightly, since, you know, it's Marcus. Coins are a big deal to Marcus. Alongside the debut of coins are the debut of items. You know what they all do, so I'll spare the details, but I'd like to note how much the red shells like to fuck around. They're not as bad as 64's red shells, but they're still a pain to use in tight spaces since they'll likely try to cut the corner too harshly and bonk into a wall. I do, however, want to talk about the feather. I loved it in Mario World, and I think it's cool here as well, making your cart do a big jump and allowing you to take some cuts over the track. This never returned outside of 8 Deluxe's battle mode, but I feel like it only works in this game's condensed course design anyways. One thing to note about how the item boxes work though is that they don't regenerate ever. Game over. You run over a box once and you'll have to get a different box on the next lap. Computer players don't use the item boxes, so this mechanic is definitely more effective in 2-player, especially in stages like the Koopa Beaches where there'll be a lone item box on a different path and you can get the upper hand if you're more of an epic gamer. So that basically covers the average race, but the results of a race are a bit different than usual. You see, Super Mario Kart actually has a life system. If you get lower than 4th place, you'll rank out and have to retry the course while consuming an extra life. I am not sure how I feel about this, because if I fail a race hard, I kinda just want to move on and make up for it in the next race. On the other hand though, I guess it does encourage you to do better. Still, I prefer it when in modern games they'll just let you move on no matter the results. Please just let me take my L and go. But once you clear the last course in the cup, we get a really charming podium cutscene. I like how each character interacts with a champagne bottle differently, especially Luigi. Look how much he's styling. Funny thing about this is that the Japanese version actually has some of the characters get drunk. It got removed in the US version, and I don't get why, because as far as I can tell, you can't spell Mario Kart without alcohol poisoning. The Grand Prix mode is pretty solid, but we have some other modes too. Time trials is a great place to practice drifting, as I did. Although it's weird that they removed some of the course elements in this mode. I guess they want you to practice with purely the layout and not all the other stuff. I wish they didn't do this though, because I want to easily replay the entirety of a course. We also got battle mode, and I pretty much have the same consensus with the other battle modes, which is it's fine. The fact that it's one-on-one gives a more unique dynamic than other battle modes. The battle arenas aren't that special, just squares with different assortment of walls. Not that they could do much better with what they're working with. I will say though that Super Mario Kart by far has my favorite battle music. It's catchy, hard-hitting, and captures the battle mode chicanery perfectly. And while we're on the topic of music, Super Mario Kart's soundtrack is like really, really good. I know that's to be expected for Mario Kart, but I'm glad to see that this was the case since the very start. Being a Super Nintendo game, the sound font is pretty raw and I love it. The hard-hitting drums, those dinky instruments of Vanilla Lake, and that trumpet primarily used in Mario Circuit and Rainbow Road, it's ascending. The soundtrack is so good, instead of pointing out every one that I love, it'd be faster to call out the ones I don't. Ghost Valley and Bowser Castle are remixes from Super Mario World, and honestly I don't prefer these versions. And Choco Island has the nice melody, but the mixing for some reason is really off. It's like if they gave me access to FL Studio. But other than those, we have a pretty much perfect OST. Gotta shout out Soyo Oka for giving us the hardest hits of '92. And if there's anything I want them to bring back in the next game, it's this game's different character victory themes. Another great showcase of this game's character, and it's a way to encourage you to try out other drivers. They each reflect their personalities very well. Mario obviously has the main Mario theme. Peach's theme sounds all elegant. And even Yoshi has his noise in his theme. Luigi's theme though, I'm not sure what they're going for. You know, there's something funny to me about early characterization of Luigi, where they don't really know who he is yet. Before Luigi's Mansion made him the nervous, scaredy cat type, they really just made him the weird, unpopular brother of the popular guy. Like, he's always part of the group, but the others can't help but get strange readings from him always trying to aura max. Quite the sidetrack, but that seems to be everything Super Mario Kart has to offer. And from what we've seen, it doesn't look half bad. It's seeping with old Mario charm, and while some of the mechanics take a while getting used to, they're pretty fun once you do. So yeah, I guess people were wrong. Super Mario Kart's a good time. Man, I would really like to say that. I really would. But there's one thing about this game I've been intentionally saving for last, because it genuinely makes this game absolutely insufferable at times. I'm of course talking about the computer players. So, computer players. They serve as intelligent opponents to overcome in single player, and in 8 Deluxe they're designed really well. When they're in hard mode, I can really feel their hardness. I should probably rephrase that. But creating AI to simulate everything the player can do is no easy task. It's a huge pain in fact. So I'd like to be a bit forgiving when it comes to the AI of the earlier Mario Kart games. But let me just say, it's really hard for me to be forgiving with Super Mario Kart's computers because this is the worst they've ever been. Nothing in Mario Kart fills me with rage as much as this baboon. So first off, they're a complete nuisance with collisions. The fact that the road is so thin means it's a bit trickier to stay on course. It's a good challenge. You know, until Toad tells you go fuck yourself. It's really bad on the first lap when you're in the middle of the crowd. It drains the hell out of your coins, and they practically blockade the road of how much they're hunched together. They're so relentless too, especially your rival. They'll have a good view of your ass the entire race. You make one bad judgment and there he goes. Later games would implement rubber banding in the AI, so they'll be easier if you're behind and more difficult if you're ahead. This guy, however, gives zero shits about you. They don't accommodate for you falling behind, and if they do, it's barely noticeable. Like, just look at the map. He is such a tryhard. If you're down on like 6th or 7th, I'm confident the only way you're getting back to the top is with lightning, which is insanely busted in this game by the way. And it gets worse with the rank out system. Once you try the race again, they start you in the position you finished with in the last race, so trying to get first on repeated attempts is even more of an uphill battle. It's almost like the system kicks you while you're down and really strict with the performance that'll accept from you. Also, they just straight up cheat. They don't interact with any of the course hazards or elements, so they can just go through off-road and they can jump over items. Look, I get that it would be hard to code, but there's better ways to work around that than giving them creative mode. And then on top of all of that, you have the aforementioned mechanic of your rival constantly throwing stuff on the ground. Look, I get it's to make up for the fact that they can't use item boxes, but they use their items way more often than you get to use yours. There was a time where Luigi had a star active for like 2 laps. Like I said, he's just trying to aura max. There are a few ways that they balance this out though. Like I said before, you're the only one who can use item boxes, but there's something else you can do that the computers can't, which is drifting. The optimal way of getting ahead of your opponents is taking sharper turns than them. Now this works on paper, but the player's ability to take sharper turns and cuts just isn't enough to combat the computer's tendencies to charge ahead and spam items. Again, it kicks the player while they're down. They'll get their ankles broken, brain lobotomized, and spit on for one extra measure. So it turns out that the core gameplay being intruded by the AI constantly bullying you fucking sucks, man. Good going, Super Marky Cars. I sure hope in the sequel they fix this problem and doesn't make it even worse, making the gameplay feel like CBT. They don't completely ruin the game for me to the extent where I hate it, but it does make me go from thinking that it's pretty good to decent. It's a real shame because I love the presentation, the music, the characters, and I grew to like the controls. But man, the opponents really hinder my gameplay experience to the point where I have more fun playing time trials, which is kinda sad. That's my big problem with Super Mario Kart, and this seems to be a shared complaint from its detractors. Yet I wouldn't say the most common complaint. There's actually something else about Super Mario Kart that's the most common reason why Mario Kart fans tend to deem this as the worst one, and that would be its selection of courses. Let's talk about them, shall we? Now, I'm not gonna pretend that I didn't also think these tracks were shit. I mean, there's literally video evidence. It's pretty obvious why remaking tracks in this game isn't a priority, considering that they're flat, super basic, and lack in variety.
That's not me. That's not you.
So why was that the case with me and many others? Well, there's a few points. Number 1, repeated themes. While Super Mario Kart does have an impressive 20 courses, there's only 8 categories that each fall under. There's 2 vanilla lakes, there's 3 donut plains, and there's 4 Mario circuits. Okay, you guys are right, this game sucks. But I think that's a natural caveat for having a course selection this big. The alternative would be that they all have unique theme, but there's only like 12 courses. Again, it's the best they could do with what they're working with. And speaking of doing their best, number 2, it's flat. When you're used to courses with elevation and mechanics like tricking and mini turbos, and you come back to the game where there's none of that, it's going to feel weaker by comparison. But thinking about it more, is that not a bit unfair? Putting courses that are fighting tooth and nail to work on a Super Nintendo up on the same level as the GameCube and Wii? Like, yeah guys, Super Mario World is so boring, where's the triple jump? I think dismissing these courses as lame because they're 2D isn't the right angle of critique. By treating the Super Nintendo courses like they're courses on the Super Nintendo, you'll find value in stuff that you normally take for granted, like the tight turns or shortcut opportunities. I wouldn't say the flat layouts make these courses bad, but rather the ceiling of quality is lower than the 3D courses. But I think the reason why there's such a stigma against them is their appearances outside of Super Mario Kart. Number 3, appearing as retro tracks. It's always exciting to see what the lineup of remastered courses will be in the next Mario Kart. Will they bring back Mushroom City? Toad's Factory? Mario Circuit 4? This is likely why people pin the 2D courses against the 3D ones, because when it comes to the like of Wii's Lightning Cup, it's hard to ignore the bro who thinks he's on the team. The retro cups including courses from all types of games makes it easy to compare them to each other, and while I defended the SNES courses in their hometown, I think the hate they get as retro courses are a bit more understandable. I think I'm gonna use sandwiches as an analogy to show you what I mean. If the likes of Mario Kart Wii and 8 courses are delightful BLTs, Super Mario Kart tracks are ham and mayonnaise. Sometimes the ham might be moldy, but on occasion you get one with some real rich mayonnaise and tender ham. Ham and mayonnaise can taste really good, but even that can't compare with an above average BLT, you know? If modern track selections are like sandwich stores, hardly anyone is going to order a ham and mayo when you can get a BLT instead. In other words, it's harder to like Ghost Valley 2 when it's in the same game you can play Delfino Square. But if you're whining about Ghost Valley 2 in Super Mario Kart, brother in Christ, you're in the ham and mayonnaise sandwich emporium. That's all they're gonna serve and you can't expect anything more. I hope my sandwich analogy got the message across. It's understandable if you find the SNES courses underwhelming in modern games, but when it comes to the game where every course is a SNES course, you should set your expectations accordingly. And you know what? To give these courses some needed spotlight, why don't we rank them all right now? There's some unspoken bangers, but also irredeemable slop, so let's find out which courses exactly have those titles. I won't be spending that much time on each of them since there's not that much to say for them. Also, for this ranking, I'll be using tiers this time, starting with F tier, the absolute bottom of the barrel. Let's begin, shall we?
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
So in an older video of mine, I claimed that Bowser Castle 2 from Super Mario Kart was the worst course in the entire series. Well, lots of stuff in that video has aged pretty poorly, and that claim was one of them. After recently replaying this game, I no longer think that it's the worst. Because Vanilla Lake 1 is somehow even worse, Jesus Christ. You know, it's almost impressive how literally nothing about this course works. The main road is very jagged and it's easy to go off course, especially due to the computer players. There's a bunch of pipes just scattered at random and only feel like they're here to fill up empty space and provide half-assed obstacles. But the ice blocks, good lord, they don't pop out of the ground like the pipes, so you can't spot them as well, and they just bunch them together in a narrow spot so you're gonna hit at least one no matter what. It's agony. It's a complete clusterfuck, but hey, at least it's short so the pain is short-lived. Not an inch of Vanilla Lake 1 is remotely fun. You couldn't... Well, I was gonna say you couldn't pay me to play this course again, but like, $5 should do. Please do not remake Vanilla Lake 1 for the new Mario Kart. We need to take it out back and get rid of it for good. Anyways, with that out of the way, Bowser Castle 2 is marginally better, but still a dumpster fire. Just look at this map, dude. I will admit that last time I tackled this course, I was in pretty bad form. I assumed that it was unanimously hated on, so I wouldn't be held accountable if I half-assed the analysis. Well, little did I know that this would be my Oppenheimer moment. So I want to take this opportunity to take a second, more thorough attempt on why I think this course is a disaster in game design. So first off, it's a horrible jump in difficulty. It's a flower cup course that's littered with sharp 90-degree turns, where the course right before it had turns that were far smoother. The corners of these turns have these little pockets where you can get caught in them, and it just sucks the soul out of you. And we have the middle portion that's made up of square sections that make the racetrack an incohesive mess, and have you take even more successive sharp turns. And they try to justify the clearly insufficient path by adding an item box, which is absolutely not worth it. Now I do want to be clear that the high difficulty isn't inherently bad, but it just isn't fit for being this early in the track roster. And of course, we have the most bizarre thing that no other Mario Kart course had the balls to do. If you take this one turn, the road just ends. I tried to jump across with the feather and made it onto another part of the track, so it seems like it's a shortcut. Or is it? So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I don't think this was designed as a feather cut, but rather this is an exploit due to the haphazard course design. And I think there's a lot to support this. First of all, this would once again be a drastic difficulty jump from Ghost Valley 2's far easier feather cut. And here you have to be on 150cc and almost frame perfect to pull it off. Not even the late game offers frame perfect opportunities. And if you do stick the landing, you're dropped off in a pretty uncomfortable spot in the middle of the square paths, and need to take either a sharp left or the long way around the square. I don't know about you, but I don't think the option to shave like 5 seconds off the race would ask for that much. Also, the game literally spells it out for you. I would have made it say jump, or at the very least, fuck you. But if you were to argue that it is an intentional shortcut, then it's a horribly executed one for the same reasons above. And it's just more effective at being a cheap beginner's trap. Like, ideally, you're only gonna fall for this once, so you'll know to avoid the dead end in the future. But even if you can easily run past it, I still think it's still valid to criticize it for simply existing. And it'd be pretty lame to say that just because I got better at the course automatically means the course is better designed. So that's 2 entire segments that serve useless almost all the time. And when there's entire branches of the road you have to actively avoid, I think that's the sign of a course just being broken. I will say though, it's in the same boat of Lost Levels where it's funny how much of an anti-example of level design it is, which is why I ranked it above Vanilla like 1, because that one is just pathetic. If you like this course and how easy it is to exploit, more power to you, but here at Frying Pan Sam Industries, I take game design a bit more seriously, and this just isn't how you do it, Chief. Number 18, Bowser Castle 1. Like its younger brother, it has some questionable course design, but it's not nearly as bad. I'm referring to these slots on the sides of this straightaway. They serve to trap you to take the dash panels at a bad angle, and I'd say that's annoying if that ever happened to anyone who played this. It's pretty ineffective. Going straight for like half the course, who would have known, makes for a very boring experience. I will say I like how the thwomps work in this game, where they only start doing their thwompy things after the first lap. Makes it so the player can get familiar with the layout on the first lap and add more to the course in preceding laps. But the fact that the thwomps are used far better in other courses means I can't really give that much props to this one. I don't get an aneurysm playing it like the last 2, but it's just a grand nothing burger. I kinda zone out while playing this since there's barely anything here but a bunch of straightaways. And the dramatic setting of Bowser's Castle is comically unfitting for an early game track that serves to be easy. Bowser Castle 1 is very boring, unimpressive, and forgettable that I'm confident has no fans. But those 3 were the only ones that I think are truly awful. Now onto the ones that are just plain bad. Number 17, Koopa Beach 2. I don't know what to make of this map. It's somehow too open yet too narrow. This course is known for its open water section with all the deep ends scattered around, and I thought it was neat at first, until I fell in one of the deep end parts and felt my soul leave me. The bouncing cheeps are here too, but it just makes this part too crowded with things to avoid. It also feels too short and simple for a special cup course. I do like the lone island with the item box though. It's a good reward for skill and exploration. Overall, not really fun to race on. We've seen much worse than this, but it could do much better too. Number 16, Donut Plains 3. Donut Plains 3 unfortunately suffers from biting off more than it can chew. It's going for something that's simply too much for Super Mario Kart. For one, the main path gets too narrow, making it frustrating to get around your opponents. And the opponents generally make this course a lot more insufferable than usual. I'd normally welcome the moles, but they just add to a course that's already a bit too much in terms of scale. I do, however, like the bit where you jump over the bridge. That's pretty fun. But it's pretty sad when my favorite part of the course lasts half a second. The Mario Kart 8 remake shows that they have the blueprints for something good, but the nature and design of Super Mario Kart holds this one back a lot for me. Also, according to that magazine from earlier, this is Nick's favorite. What the heck, Nick? I thought I could trust you. Well, at least he's not Drew. Number 15, Choco Island 2. So in Mario Kart DS, Choco Island 2 is famed for being one of Mario Kart's greatest atrocities, and for the most part I agree. But honestly, the original isn't that atrocious. It's still kinda bad though. The main set piece is this large mud pile, and driving over mud in this game throws off your steering. Because of that, it would be pretty annoying to drive around this big mud pit, but like, you can just drive straight and won't feel that hindrance. Wow, it's not even good at being a nuisance. Outside of that complete failure, the rest is fine. I like the beginning with those two curves and when the road gets narrow. The piranha plants are an effective obstacle as there's more pressure to stay off the sides of the road. And Choco Island is my favorite theme in this game. I just like this swampy sort of wetlands that got named after chocolate because it looks like it. And I love the brown and orange color tones. They just go together pretty well. Just a shame that the courses that utilize the theme are not great. Number 14, Mario Circuit 1. It has my respect for being the very first Mario Kart track, but you know what, I'm gonna disrespect my elders. It's really just a rectangle with a bend on one of the sides, and there's not much room to flex outside that one patch of off-road you can boost through. I'll cut it some slack for having the task of easing the player into the game, and it does a decent job at it, but what makes an even better first level is making it still fun for more experienced players, and I can't really say that it is. Quite the nothing burger, but hey, it serves as a tutorial good enough.
It's alright. I had better at the school cafeteria.
Number 13, Mario Circuit 3. Here we have it. The course tied with this game's Rainbow Road as the most remade course in this series. Does it deserve to be?
No.
In fact, it's far from the best Mario Circuit in this game. It has some curves that make for a decent challenge, and it has a few places to boost through the off-road, but that fucking turn that I hate. I just know they assorted these blocks this way on purpose. It was pretty annoying to deal with it at first, but I did eventually figure out the timing, or on occasion I just slowed down. It doesn't feel very satisfying to overcome, and feels unnatural compared to the rest of the course's difficulty scale. But Mario Circuit 3 as a whole is just a very average course, and not at all deserving to be Mario Kart's Green Hill Zone, and stands out even less from the fact that there's 4 Mario Circuits. There's 4 Mario Circuits, Jesus. Number 12, Mario Circuit 4. I did not plan for 3 Mario Circuits in a row, but here we are. This is just Mario Circuit 3, but better. No, seriously, look at their maps. This one has pipes that cut through parts of the road, and it's fun trying to squeeze between them. And I feel like the turns are altered a bit that actually make them slightly more fun. Still nothing to write home about, but if we're going to have a SNES Mario Circuit in every Mario Kart game, this might see the light of day once more. And I guess that'll be exciting. Not really. Number 11, Donut Plains 1. This one's just kind of here, but it's not bad. Driving over a bridge in front of a lake is a neat set piece, and adds something to what would be a generic grassland theme. And that one mushroom shortcut is neat too. But my favorite bits are with the turns where the inside is more rough terrain. It's a very natural risk and reward mechanic. While Mario Circuit 1 is a decent first level, Donut Plains 1 is a solid second level. Number 10, Choco Island 1. I think the mud hazard is executed a lot better here. Driving over the smaller mud pits brings an effective hindrance to the player's steering, yet not intrusive since they're easy to drive around. And the piranha plants still serve as good warnings to keep you on the main road. Also, the bumps that make you bounce up and down are funny. Sometimes that's all you need. It has some neat stuff sprinkled in here and there, but not that impressive at a bigger scale. Wish I could rate it higher, being a Choco Island fan, but I can't do that in good faith. And that marks the end of the average courses. Now onto the ones that I can say are pretty good.
How do we know which one's B? I mean, they all look alike. Not cool, Sonic.
Starting with number 9, Ghost Valley 1. We've gotten to the first of the Ghost Valleys, and while the theming and music are a bit generic, the courses themselves are actually pretty strong on average. Ghost Valley 1 has an actually good feather shortcut. Look at that, you do the jump and then you drive on the alternate path. Brilliant stuff. I really like the concept of parts of the wall falling off from running into them, but it's not the best in execution considering how small these pieces actually are. I doubt you're gonna hit the exact same bit of the ledge that you took the wall from earlier. Thus, I don't think the hazard is as effective as it should be. This course is on the simpler side, but also on the pretty good side. Number 8, Ghost Valley 2. Does everything Ghost Valley 1 does, but a bit more. Now being in the Flower Cup, it has a few more twists and turns. And the feather shortcut is more subtly implemented by taking the form of a gap between the inside of the turn. And that's really all I have to say about this, since most of my compliments are carried over from Ghost Valley 1. It's just a solid course that I have no problems with. I guess I'll take this time to point the boos in the background. I don't know why I like them. It looks like they're chewing on a good Nature Valley bar. By the way, here's a fun challenge. Grab a Nature Valley bar and eat it over your keyboard. Number 7, Bowser Castle 3. Glad to see they finally figured out how not to make a Bowser Castle shit. It's one of the hardest courses in the game, but I actually welcome it here because it's in the Star Cup, where hard courses should be. I love the section where you can jump across all these platforms, and the fact that item boxes are a one-time use encourages you to hop to a different island on each lap. I do have a few gripes though. First of all, this part right here where the road suddenly gets more narrow is a bit awkward, and there's one part where you can't progress if all thwomps are on the floor. That's dumb. That's some calamari desert shit right there. But what this does right more than makes up for what it does wrong. Really goes to show that one of the best Mario Kart 8 courses has qualities from the beginning. Number 6, Vanilla Lake 2. It's insane how much better this is than Vanilla Lake 1. They're very similar from the fact they're both icy circles, but this icy circle is somehow based while the other is cringe. And it's all because of these cracks.
Crack? What the fuck?
Jumping over these cracks and trying to take these turns as close to the inside of the lake as possible is super riveting. Honestly, one of the most fun things to do in this entire game, but it has its issues too. Those sheets of ice blocks are overkill, yet still not as bad as Vanilla Lake 1 since they're packed together, not scattered around. And it's far too short, even when you're not taking all those cuts. And the computers just casually drive over an off-road portion. Awesome. Even with all these gripes though, I still have a lot of fun with Vanilla Lake 2, purely from the constant jeopardizing gameplay. Number 5, Koopa Beach 1. It's a lot like Vanilla Lake 2, where it incentivizes you to take inside turns the furthest you possibly can without screwing yourself over. But I put this one higher due to not having some bullshit. Hopping over the water between the islands is fun too, and once again it also has an item box off the beaten path. It may seem like the most plain and boring course ever, but surprisingly the simplicity works in its favor to create a fun playground for hopping around. And with that, we've gone to the 4 big league players of Super Mario Kart. Courses that even Super Mario Kart haters should admit are pretty damn good. And our first certified banger is Ghost Valley 3. It's very complex and jagged, but not too overwhelming and serves as a fulfilling Special Cup challenge. That one zigzag portion is pretty tricky as it's easy to get too close to the edge and fall off. And the holes in the floor are tricky to maneuver around, but it's also fun to hop over them with a feather. When you finish this course without falling off a single time, you'll feel like so much of a gamer you'll become racist. I'm personally rooting for this course as the one representative for Super Mario Kart in the next game's retro track selection. Or you know, they could just do Mario Circuit 4. The bronze medal is gonna go to Rainbow Road. Glad to see what started the most iconic series of courses does not disappoint. It's super aesthetically pleasing with the stars in the backdrop. The layout might look simple at a first glance, but its thin road and sharp 90-degree turns adds a lot of difficulty. A very effective final test of your skills. And the Rainbow Thwomps are effective obstacles that naturally ramp up the difficulty from start to finish. But I will say, it's not the greatest when you get caught in a combo with these Thwomps. That's pretty much GG's. But on top of all of that, you have music that, while it's sounds much different from the usual Rainbow Road feel, it is still great at congratulating you for coming this far and encouraging you to complete this final gauntlet. I maybe would have liked it more if this wasn't a B shape like half the courses, but hey, I guess is what makes it the perfect callback. Some real good stuff all around. I can't believe it either, but the middle child of the Donut Plains is somehow the second best course in this game. It's deceiving how great this is. The theming is fairly simple, but the layout itself is very satisfying to drift around. The Monty Moles are goofy obstacles, yet they don't overstay their welcome since you can easily shake them off. While the lake is not involved in the course layout, it's still a nice decoration to what would normally be a simple grassland, and it utilizes more of that rough terrain on the inside of the turns, and I think it's used the best here. That's really all I gotta say about it. You're better off playing it yourself to understand how fun it is, as simply hearing about it can't do it justice. No crazy standout other than the Monty Moles, but I just feel super satisfied every time I play this from how much it curves around. If you got this game's drifting down, Donut Plains 2 is a treat. Although we have one even greater treat to go over next. The best course in Super Mario Kart has to be Mario Circuit 2. To be honest, this one really wasn't hard. This is truly as good as you can craft a race course in the second dimension. The big jump near the end is the main event, and yeah, it's really cool and adds some much needed elevation and grander scope. But I'd say what follows right after is even more compelling. There's an assortment of pipes on the final turn, so the player has the choice to just land on the road like normally, or go off the jump panel at an angle to try and cut between those pipes to get a last minute advantage. It really plays into your temptation to flex, and it's easily the best designed part of any of these courses. And outside of that last bit, the turns are fun and the oil spills are small, but still effective at spitting out unfortunate souls. It's very addicting and very replayable. Relative to Super Mario Kart, easy S tier. But relative to general Mario Kart courses, I'd give it an A. Still amazing, but the bar of quality is raised a bit, which is what I meant earlier when I said that Super Mario Kart courses can still be great, but never as great as a 3D one can get. And I hope going through all these courses have made you grow some more appreciation for them. Sure, they're far less capable than the likes of Double Dash or Wii, but putting the limitations into account, I think some of these courses are good in their own right. And I think they should be given more credit for what they were able to accomplish with such an unconventional method of simulating 3D. In other words, Ratio Schaeferless, your list is wrong. I'm gonna eventually steal your idea of ranking everything I put last place. This is what it looks like so far. Also, I was curious to see how good each set of courses are on average, so here you go. I did math for the first time in several months. But now that I've gone over every course, every mechanic, and pretty much everything notable about Super Mario Kart, I think it's time we wrap things up here. So after waffling about Super Mario Kart for over half an hour, I think my thoughts on it have shifted quite a bit, but it's still a bit tricky to exactly pinpoint my opinion. It definitely grew on me, and I have a lot more respect for its innovation and technical feats. However, I'm torn between my praise for its quality for Super Nintendo standards, and my more mixed feelings when having modern day standards. I can forgive the course design being on the simpler side and the general smaller scale, but I can only use the "it's old" excuse for so many shortcomings. I just cannot stand the gameplay sometimes. The computer players are so stubborn and often cheat their way to victory. So it ends up being one of those games that I get more enjoyment from thinking about it or observing it than actually playing it. Because while the presentation and sound design are also dated, I actually find them to have a lot of appeal from it being a product of its time. To paraphrase, it's so retro. So if you were to ask me how I feel about Super Mario Kart, I would say it's not bad. It's a fine racing game, it's just occasionally insufferable. I can at least confirm that this is not the worst Mario Kart game, and I wouldn't say the previous game I covered, Mario Kart Tour, is the worst either. In fact, while it's very hard to compare these two given how different they are, I'd say Tour is better. Tour is more mechanically involved and has far more content to consume. I mean, it got updated for as long as a presidential term, but I wouldn't say it's better by a large margin, because its core mechanics are pretty scuffed, like a skill-based combo meter in a luck-involved game, and an inventory system that's intentionally designed to take up as much time and money as possible. That being said, neither of these I feel like are deserved to be as standard as they are. And while we're waiting for the next Mario Kart title, I'd say give Super Mario Kart another chance, with more of an open mind. Who knows, you may end up kind of liking it. Or you can just make retro track predictions, and they'll shame you for not having Woohoo Loop. But then you might ask, if the worst game isn't Tour or Super, then what is? Let's save that can of worms for another time, yeah?